Hello and welcome to a brand new game for the channel. This is Microtopia and we are building the colony of PandAnt. This game is basically, if you think Factorio blended with Ant Colony, that is the general vibes, and I've been playing this for the last day and a half non-stop. Absolutely love it. I hope you guys too. This will be a little bit of a tester to see whether or not you guys want this to become a fully fledged series. So if you do, make sure to leave a comment letting me know down below. We are going to be starting a brand new game. Currently we have no options for the starting biome. World Seed we are going to change to Chubby, so if you want to play along at home you are more than welcome to. Ant species, again, we don't have any other options, and I have already done the intro and the tutorial, so I am going to say quicker intro sequence, which basically just skips the tutorial. That is going to throw us straight in to this little island here, the island of PandAnt. The aim of the game here is to build a thriving ant colony. It's going to tell us to do a couple of different things, but if we just have a quick look at our map and get a lay of the land. By the way, if you zoom out a bunch, you can see the little islands that your ants are going to live on. We can see what we have all around the place. So right off the bat, I like to have sort of a central loop that gives me nice, easy access to different parts of the map. And this little area here looks nice and empty and perfect for that situation. So I think my queen is probably going to live somewhere down here. Now this placement probably won't be final, but I'm going to throw it down right about there for the moment. I think that'll be absolutely fine. She should come flying in because she is, of course, a robot ant, not a normal ant. And they will come in, they will land straight away, and we get some nice worker ants off the start. Now, these ants are a little bit special because they have an infinite lifespan. So it's good to throw these guys on something that you really quite care about. And because we are skipping the intro, we already have access to a ton of stuff. The first thing that I think I'm going to lay down is that starting little loop that I want to do. And I want this to be somewhat large, but not excessive. So if we go somewhere like this, down, that's going to interact with that, which I actually don't want. And there, that is going to be my starting loop. These are ant trails, and our ants will follow them if we throw them on this trail. But before we get ants, and well, we have 4 ants already, but we need more. That obviously isn't going to be enough to satisfy our needs. So we need to start getting our queen fed, producing larvae, and then incubating said larva. So larvae, lava, I don't know, one of the two. So what we need to do is we first need to think about getting some flowers. Now there are a couple of different areas we can get flowers on the map. This one is pretty decently sized. This one down here is actually really quite well sized. I think I might start down here. So to get that started, we'll go for a foraging trail, place it and try and hit as many of these flowers as we possibly can. Get all of them. I'm going to leave this one out just because it's going to make my loop a little bit longer than I want it to be. Come up here, try and get as many of these as we can in the shortest possible path. And I think we might have missed some of these ones in the middle if I'm not mistaken, but we can double check that in a second. So now if we just grab this and jiggle it, we can see which flowers we are actually getting. And I think we're missing this one here as well. So I believe this path will get us every single flower in this area apart from that one, and that will be fantastic. So this is now going to require ourselves getting a stockpile that we can throw down somewhere like this. By the way, if you click to place it, then you get free rotate. You can then right click to save that rotation and place it exactly where you want it. Just make sure you don't rotate the mouse again, otherwise you will lose that rotation. But if you just double click, it will place it down where you want it to go. So we now have that there, and we need an ant to start working on this trail and getting ourselves some flowers. Now this loop is going to be a little bit long for this singular ant, but eventually we will fill this up with multiple ants. With that in mind, it might be worth going ahead and saying, you know what, just do this little section for right now, and we'll expand to over here a little bit later. To do that, I'm just going to throw a node down right there. Nope, not have the thing in. Just throw a node down right there, and that way we can cut it off, but we can still save that path for later on. So this ant is going to come in and start eating away at these little berries on the flowers, throwing them in the stockpile. Now we need to get them to our queen bee, and I'm actually going to move her just a little bit because I think she might be a little bit too close for my liking. We'll throw her right about there. That should be fine. Now, to get the flowers that we have in this stockpile up to here, we're going to need a dispenser. And the good thing about dispensers is they don't have a range limit. So I could throw this dispenser all the way over here and have instant access to this stockpile. For right now, I'm just going to throw that right about there, maybe back a little bit further, just to have a little bit of room. And then we will throw a hauling trail from here to here, come out and do a loop. That's all we need. Then we can throw an ant onto that hauling trail. The ant will grab some of that energy pod and give it to the queen. It will continuously do that loop until there is more in there to grab. It will feed the queen. That is going to slowly increase the energy fed, getting us from stage 1 to stage 2, all the way up through the stages, increasing our max population. So that is fantastic. The next thing we need to do is take the brood that the queen lays and basically get ourselves some more larva being laid. So we're going to throw this down basically in the exact same fashion right down there, but it's not going to let us because this requires scrap iron to build. Now, thankfully, there is scrap iron laying all over the place that we can absolutely go ahead and collect. I am, for right now, going to set up a very small trail from here to here to here to here. Nice and small. The smaller they are, the faster your ants will work. We can throw an ant down onto that and grab ourselves a stockpile, throw that into there, and that will work as our metal stockpile. Now, we don't need to worry about dispensing this. As soon as they throw it onto the stockpile, it will go straight into building this. So that's fantastic. I'll come back in a little bit once this is all finished out. And with the last piece going in, we now have a incubator. That is fantastic. We just need to set up another little trail from here to here to here to here, so we can get another ant working on delivering those larvae to the incubator. And from there, we pretty much have ant population automated, right? It's going to be slow because we only have one worker collecting things. We only have one worker doing this. But overall, it's going to be okay. What we could do to help increase that just a little bit is go ahead and add a couple more incubators down. So I'm going to do exactly that. Get these nice and close to each other. Just like so. And just like so. And then we can just simply drag out, which is a little bit easier said than done in this situation because our ant is standing on it. And as soon as you see that arrow, it's big enough and it will connect to that incubator. We then do the exact same thing with this little anchor point, and as soon as it touches, it is good to go. And this ant will now, if I can get it to be back on the track, it will now go ahead and as soon as these are built, it will distribute these larvae to each of these pods. But these ants have nowhere to go at the moment, so we need to grab another hauling track, connect these all up, bring it off to the side, and introduce them to our main loop. This is where we're going to be grabbing ants from in the long run. So you can see our brand new worker ant is heading along this and will eventually just start wandering around this track ready for us to use. But keep in mind, these ants only last for 5 minutes. So they will eventually die and need to be replenished. All right, with that being said, we should probably go ahead and increase our iron production, increase our flower production, and make sure that we are getting ants at a nice solid pace. So to do that, we are going to use what is called a counter gate. Now I want more ants down on this loop down here. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to come off my main loop with a little bit of a counter gate right there. We're going to zoom in, click on this, and we can say how many ants do we want working on that trail. I would probably like maybe 8 for right now. I know that seems like a lot since our max population is only 10, but I promise you it's going to work out. And then we just need to get the ants from here down to our loop. So I'm going to do a little bit of a zigzag to get them out. A little bit of a there and a little bit of a there. And that should work out quite nicely. You can see now that we currently have 2 out of 8 ants on that track. And if you click on the gate, it shows you what is included in that track. Now, of course, because we do have more ants coming into this, we can potentially expand this, but I'll probably wait until this is at least a little bit fuller to do that, just because the longer the track is, the slower they're going to be to walk around it, obviously. So I'm going to wait for a little bit until this is full, which it pretty much is already. I think that is 6 out of 8. And we can come down here and reconnect this track. So we'll go to there and go to there and do that. That should work out quite nicely. This ant lost his way a little bit, so we'll send him back on the track. I actually think a lot of them lost their way, so we'll send them all back onto the track. Click and drag, you can select multiple ants, by the way. Good little tip to know. And that should, in theory, increase the rate at which our ant is being fed. And, in turn, increase the rate at which we are getting larvae and increase our population overall. Now, this is going to be a little bit slow until this all starts to fill up. You can see all of our ants are bunched up a little bit here, but we'll just go into a little bit of a time lapse as we watch these guys work and fill up on our energy just a little bit. And you can see in that short amount of time, we have gone up to stage 2. Our max population is now 25. This line is now full, I believe. Maybe there's one left to go on there, but that'll be fine. We can actually just quickly send that guy rather than have him do the whole loop, and that will be absolutely fine. So the next thing we should probably do is fix this guy, because he is no longer gathering any materials. You can see he's completely exhausted the iron veins that were here. These contain a specific number of iron, so we will have to move him from time to time. Simply grab the item, press F, and you can move it wherever you need it to be. And then we can simply just draw another hauling track right there and get him to move over to that one instead and remove this one from there. Of course, we can go ahead and set these up with counter gates as well, get multiple ants on here, but this guy seems like he's doing a pretty decent job all by himself at the moment. So we're going to leave him be. And the next thing we need to do is our main goal here is to get 10 regular workers. That is going to need to be done in the combiner, but that requires iron blocks, iron sheets, and screws, all of which we currently don't have. So our next port of call is getting smelting up and running, and I think we can probably sort that out right up here. So we're going to throw down, I don't know, 3 smelters for the moment, maybe 4. Let's go for 4. Why not? We have the materials. I need to remember to double click rather than rotating my mouse every time. That'll be a little bit easier. And these guys are probably far too close to that track, so we're going to move them back a little bit. Give me a second. We're going to move them back to there, 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 and there. And these are going to require a dispenser from our scrap iron stockpile, as well as a stockpile of their own. So we're going to throw down a stockpile right about there. We might move it a little bit later on. We'll grab this stockpile here, press Z to place a dispenser, and we can throw that right about there. Let's move these in a little bit closer, just so it's a little bit shorter of a distance for our ants to walk. All right, so this is the setup. We now need to make sure that our ants are going to each of these, but we don't want to create a loop like we did before, because these actually take a little bit of time to process. So if we create a loop, someone's going to bring some scrap iron to this smelter here. They're going to stand in front of it and wait for it to smelt. The ant behind it, who also has scrap, is going to stand behind that ant and just be waiting, doing absolutely nothing. That is exactly not what we want to do. So instead, we're going to grab a divider. We're going to go from the stockpile dispenser to each of these points here. So just like so. That is the first step. So when an ant gets to this point, it will either go here, 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 and it will rotate evenly through them. Then we need to bring them back to the stockpile itself. So we're just going to use a hauling trail going straight to there, hauling trail straight to there, hauling trail straight to there, and hauling trail straight to there. Now we just need to complete the loop by going hauling trail from there back to there. That creates a nice loop where they'll either go here, 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 or here. They'll all come back to the stockpile and then repeat that same pattern. Now we are going to need 4 ants to get this to run continuously. So again, we're going to use a counter gate coming off of our main loop, just like so. We'll throw that down there. And this actually gives you a free null trail. So I'm just going to use it because we're eventually going to upgrade our trails to null trails anyway. We'll talk about that more once they're unlocked, but that is just going to go straight into there. And I'll drag that back a little bit because it looks a little bit better. And then we can simply click on that counter gate and increase that to 4. And we should now see our ants coming in. They will grab some scrap iron. This one will go to the first one. This one will go to this one. And they'll rotate through this and each work at their own smeltery and then bring it all back to the stockpile. And that is going to be absolutely fantastic. We'll watch this work for just a little bit so you can see how it functions if you need some clarification, but we'll be back in a little bit. All right, that is looking fantastic, or working perfectly. We now have a decent little stockpile of iron. The next thing we need to move on to is getting this processed into other materials. But before we do that, I want to take another quick look at our situation down here. It looks like these ants are doing a decent job at harvesting these, but there is still quite a few left over. And you can tell that by the glowing little balls on the flowers themselves. So this track could definitely use a few more ants. To adjust that, we simply go into our counter gate and I'll increase that to 12 for the moment. Looks like this guy has also run out of iron, so it might be time to set up a new iron stockpile somewhere where we can hang out for just a little bit longer. So I'm going to set this up. Let's say right there should be good. Grab ourselves a hauling trail. We'll go around. I don't know if we're going to be able to grab that one from the back. Probably not. So we'll leave this one for the moment. But we should be able to come in here, go straight across and potentially grab all 3 at the same time. Almost. Oh, there's actually a second one there. So we'll go a little bit further, grab that, and then we'll come back to there. And that is our new loop. But this guy is going to struggle to do that all on his lonesome. So again, we'll set up another counting gate to help him out. Let the game run, remove that old track, and we'll grab ourselves a counting gate going up this time. That will come into there. And I'm actually going to remove that because I want a null track. So we're going to put the counting gate down, continue it out with this dotted line. I'm going to try and make this nice and straight, and then they can scooch back into there. And that should work out quite nicely. Now we just need to determine how many ants we want working this at a time. And honestly, I think 4 ants is going to be more than enough. So that is scrap iron sorted for the short term. We have iron plates, just iron, going down here. The next thing we need to do is set up some production in the workshop. And honestly, I think down here might be the best place to do that. So the workshop is this building here. We throw it down. We should have enough iron to be able to build that. And this will make both screws and iron plates. Screws are pretty simple. They just require 1 iron at a time. And the iron plate requires 4 iron at a time, being a little bit harder to automate, especially in the long run when we don't have things unlocked. But we can go ahead and move this up a little bit closer to our situation. I will probably also build 2 for screws for right now. Actually, I'm just going to do 1 for screws. I think that will be more than enough. And then we'll grab ourselves a stockpile and a dispenser from our iron. From our iron bricks. Place the dispenser down right about, I don't know, say there-ish, as close as we can. Something like that. And because we only have 1 of these, we don't really have to worry about a super complicated loop. It's just a hauling loop from there to there to there and back. And that's as simple as that. To make sure that we don't have an ant die on this and not be replaced, we will again go with the counting gate straight down, and straight across. This is already set up with 1 as default, and that should start producing screws for us. We'll wait for this ant to come along. I can actually follow him. And we'll see how he goes at producing ourselves a screw. So he should come along, grab himself some iron from there, throw it in the workshop, and that will be turned into a screw, which he will then deposit on the storage stockpile thing. And that's fantastic. So he's going to work away down there. The next thing we need to worry about is iron plates, and they're a little bit trickier. In the short term, I like to set them up basically the same as this and just have one ant on each track. I think that's the best way to do it. So that is exactly how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and place myself a stockpile in the exact same orientation as that one. Just grab it and we can throw it down right about there. Double click, grab ourselves some of our dispenser, throw this down, get it nice and close, just like so. And then we can grab ourselves our workshop to throw right in the middle, just like so. And then again, we just go for the hauling path that is as short as it can possibly be, just like that. And we grab another counter gate directly off of this one, straight down, and straight in. And that will work absolutely fine. Just make sure you actually set the recipe. Later on, we can automate these more efficiently. But for right now, actually, no, I'm going to change my mind a little bit because I don't want multiple stockpiles with the iron plates. Not that we really need to dispense them anyway, so we absolutely could. But to make it a little bit more efficient, I think we can actually adapt this design a little bit. So if I grab this and I move it over to there, grab this until it connects, that's going to be fine. Move this over so we can still keep the shortest possible length. Get that in there. Get this nice and tight. Everything nice and small. That's not going to take him very long to do that loop. That'll be fine. And then we can go ahead and grab ourselves a second dispenser. Throw that down right about there. Grab ourselves a second workshop. Throw that down as close to this other one as we can. Right there. And then we can do another hauling trail from this, actually other way, from this to this to this to that. And that way these will both be feeding the exact same stockpile, but they won't have to go to 4 machines with different things. And of course that is going to require another counter. So we'll throw our counter down right about there. Again, we only want 1 ant on this trail. That will come into there, and that should work out quite nicely. So we're going to wait a little bit until we have some screws and plates built up, and we'll come back in a little bit. Right, so this is all working exactly the way that I want it to, which is absolutely fantastic. It looks like we are doing okay in terms of feeding our queen, but not amazingly. Let's just quickly double check on this path again. Looks like we could still definitely have some more ants down here. You can see all of these flowers are unharvested. So yeah, I think we will go ahead and increase this just a little bit more, maybe up to 15 ants, all working on this one patch, which I know sounds like a lot, but this is quite a big patch to start with. And that is why we're doing that. We should also probably just quickly check how these guys are doing on these stockpiles. It looks like there's still a decent supply down there, so we don't have to worry about that. And that should be good. Looks like this is all working fine. 4 ants, all at their own stations. Absolutely perfect. So the next thing that we can probably place down is our combiner. And this is going to combine 2 regular small ants into 1 larger worker ant that has double the lifespan. That also refreshes their lifespan, so if you can get them to go in when they're old, that is the generally accepted way to do things. Now, for me, I don't have any old gates just yet, so I'm actually going to place this right around here. Hopefully there's enough room. It's so close. I think it'll fit. We might have to just bend that path up a little bit, but that's going to be fine. This will eventually move later on anyway. It's going to take some materials to build. We will go ahead and grab this path and make it so these ants, when they finish their loop, so they're coming out of the lava pods here, they go up and around, go to each of the things that need to be filled. Then, once they've completed that loop, if they've got nowhere to go, they will go into the combiner, which will combine the ants and throw them back into that same loop. So that will be perfect. We just need to change this recipe to combine normal ants. And we should be able to see that here in a second, assuming this is full. When these ants have absolutely nowhere to go, they will climb into here. One will sit there. It'll wait for a friend. That will come in. And that will be combined into a worker ant. So at the moment, these ants here can only do hauling and foraging. They also have a lifespan of 5 minutes. But if we combine two of them, they get a lifespan of 10 minutes, which is refreshed so they don't lose any of their life. So say they only had a minute left to live, this would still go up to 10 minutes. And they can also do plant cutting at this point. For right now, we're going to use them for the exact same tasks as everything else, making sure everything is nice and full. And yeah, that's going to be good. So we just need to wait for 10 of them to come out and we can move on to our next steps. So we'll be back in a little bit. And with our last 2 ants being combined, we have officially produced 10 worker ants. We now need to unlock radar technology in the development tree. So this is the development tree. It's quite large. Don't be scared. For right now, we just need to unlock radar technology. That is going to cost us 10 inventor points. Now, currently we don't have a way of making inventor points, but we can do that. So I think the best way to do this at the moment, again, this is going to change later on, is just going to be to throw down a combiner right here. That's going to be absolutely fine, because this is basically just going to, actually, you know what? Let's throw it down over here instead. That way, the worker ants also have the opportunity to do a full loop before they potentially get sucked into this. And I also want to have the option to cut this off at any given point, so we might actually bring this back a little bit. So I'm going to sit that right about there. We should have the materials to build it. Then we can go for a trail, and I'm going to put a counter gate right into this, and then a hauling gate right to there. And I'm going to set this to 1 at the moment. They will not count after they get on the machine. And that should... okay, I can't speak. And that will give us inventor ants. So to create an inventor ant, you need 2 worker ants to go into another combiner, and that will produce an inventor ant. Because we have this counter gate here, at any time we don't need more inventors, we can set this down to 0. But for right now, I'm going to leave it at 1. Worker ants should make their way onto that. Okay, they will not. That does not work. That does not work at all. But we can fix it by just re-looping this in. No, that also doesn't work. Okay, never mind. I'm going to remove all of that, and I'm just going to put this right on there. And we'll call that good. And we'll just make as many inventor ants as we need. All right, and then we need a hauler to connect this so they have somewhere to go. And from there, they are going to go onto an inventor pad. Now, I think I will put the inventor pad this way. And I'll leave a little bit of room for those flowers in case we want to harvest them later on. So that will go right about there. We can throw down our trail to connect this into that, so our inventor ants will work onto that. And then we need a way to feed these inventor ants, because if you didn't know, the inventor ants also eat these orbs. So we'll grab another hauling trail, and this is going to be pretty simple. We'll just be doing a small little triangle again, just like so, grabbing our stockpile from here, placing a dispenser down to fit into that. So we'll throw that as close as we can, just so this path is as short as it possibly can be. And that's not quite a perfect triangle. Let's go... If you zoom in, you get a little bit more control. That'll do. And then we just need to feed this with ants. So why are you... Oh, you don't have anywhere to go. That's fine. Yeah, so we need to feed this with ants to make sure that we have an ant on there that is available to work. So we're going to need another counter gate. I'm going to bring this up. This is going to be a little bit messier than I would like it to be, but we're going to bring that up, bring it around, bring it down and across, and straight into there. And that is going to default to 1, which is exactly the amount we need. They will not be doing anything for the moment, but that's fine. We have a pretty decent surplus of ants anyway. And as soon as we get an inventor ant, we should start see that filling up. But we might run into another issue where we don't have enough energy. Because if you see right about now, this is currently empty, so our queen is currently eating absolutely everything. So it might behoove us to go ahead and set up another foraging trail for another set of flowers. And if I can find a decent path through these flowers, I will be very happy. If we go something like that, down to there, up, I'll probably leave these two out because they're going to increase the trail more than they're going to benefit us. Come down here, back in through this way, and down. That should be absolutely perfect. Try to make your trails as small as you possibly can because it's going to mean your ants can move through them a little bit faster. And then of course we're going to need a new stockpile for this specific trail, and I'm going to throw that right about there. I think that should work out quite nicely. And then we need to go ahead and throw down a dispenser. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this dispenser down over here so that this can feed the queen as well, and I will throw another dispenser down over here so that it can feed this too. So I might actually throw that there, and that should work out nicely. That should allow everyone to have access to both flower patches. Of course, we do need to occupy this with some ants to get ourselves some harvesting going. So of course, we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves another counter gate. This one is going to line up right about, I want to say there. That can go into there. I'm going to remove that because I right-clicked. So I'm going to grab my counter gate, throw it in, and immediately go up to here because that's going to provide me with a null trail. I'm just going to scooch this over so that it looks a little bit nicer. If you could please get out of the way, sir. Thank you. Yeah, that should do us. And then for this little pile of flowers, I'm probably still going to need like 10 ants working that. I don't know if we have 10 ants available, but if we do, that will be absolutely perfect. So we should now have a much bigger stockpile of food for the queen and a stockpile of food for our first inventor ant. And you can see this guy is going to slowly but surely feed this guy energy until his butt gets super big. So we'll let him fill up and we'll be back in a little bit. And as he eats his last energy, his butt is going to start to glow. We can go ahead and click on that, killing the ant, but getting ourselves 10 inventor points. That is conveniently enough to unlock the radar tower. So we are going to go ahead and unlock that. That starts our journey down the skill tree here, or the knowledge tree. So that unlocks plant cutting, and we need to get to 50 ants to complete this objective. Thankfully, we already have 50 ants, so we can complete that immediately. That unlocks the old gate, the assembler, and the iron floor tile. We now need to go ahead and build said radar tower, and that can literally be placed anywhere. It doesn't matter. Your ants don't need to interact with it, so I'm going to throw it down here, just out of the way for the moment. Hopefully we have enough resources, but we do not. Looks like we need more energy, which makes sense, because that is the thing we are currently lacking the most of. Looks like these guys are all working quite nicely though. This patch is pretty empty, and that should fill up very, very quickly. So as soon as that's filled up, we'll come back. And our last piece of energy there, we now have a radar tower, and our next goal is to make contact. We can simply do that by clicking a button. That is going to send out a message to all the other ants and tell them that we are here, and we get our very first nuptial flight, which is very, very exciting. And kind of looks pretty cool, to be honest. So this takes a little bit. I'll speed through it and we'll be back in a little bit. And with our first nuptial flight complete, we have revealed ourselves a new island. Amazing. It's now going to tell us a report because you get one after every nuptial flight. We created 4 sentry ants. They came with the queen. We created 139 small worker ants. We repurposed 36 of them for other things. 68 of them died. We made 18 worker ants. 6 were repurposed. 3 inventor ants. 2 of them have died. And our third one is going ahead and getting the research points up and running. So by the way, M zooms you all the way out and back in, which is very, very handy to know. We still have our inventor ants working along down here. And it's actually at this point that I'm going to deviate from the instincts that it tells us to. I really want to set up old gates and iron floor tiles. So we're going to need a whole bunch of inventor points, which hopefully shouldn't be too much of an issue. We don't have a lot going on right now. This is another thing you need to keep in mind. You will eventually need to move these guys like all the time. Eventually we will unlock mining and it'll take a little bit longer for them to do that, but for right now we need to move things around. So I'm going to grab this one right here because why not? Grab ourselves a hauling trail, just go, we'll make this sort of big because I have a decent amount of ants over here. Select all the ants on this trail, bring them down and into that, and make sure that I get rid of this for the moment, just so that we don't get a whole bunch of ants going onto that path that we don't need. And then we can go ahead and reset that up with another counter gate in a more appropriate location. So that can go straight into there. We'll set this at, I think there was like 4 on there. Yeah, looks like there's 4 on there. We'll wait for them to gather this and then we'll move them to a bigger spot. I kind of want to clear these out because this looks like prime real estate to me, and probably clear this out as well. And then we might move them like over here to grab all of this other material down here. But we're going to have to be doing some research in the meantime. So with that being said, it looks like we are finally getting a surplus of energy pods, which is good. Means we might be able to go ahead and start feeding our queen more, but we honestly have enough ants at the moment to keep us happy. So I think I'll leave it there for the moment and just continue working on getting inventor points. We basically need 50 to get the old gate, which is the most important thing that I want to get, and then another 50 to get the iron floor tile. And I'll show you why I want those as soon as we get them. So I'll go ahead and fill up 3 more inventor ants, and then we'll be back in a little bit. This is actually a perfect opportunity to show you what you should do with your old ants. So you can see this guy only has 1 minute and 8 left in his life cycle. So I'm going to send him over to this path here. And I'm going to send this guy who also has only 50 seconds left over to this path here, in hopes that they both go into the combiners before anyone else. They might not, but it looks like they will. And you can see this guy's come in. We need to pop that. And as soon as he comes out, or as soon as both of these guys come out, they should have a replenished lifespan. So this guy now has 10 minutes left, and this guy is becoming an inventor, which is very, very helpful to us. But I was just going ahead and moving this over so that we can clear out some of these areas. I'm going to continue doing that in the time lapse as we get our 50 inventor points up and running, and I'll be back in a little bit. All right, with our ants now collecting scrap metal in this much larger pile, they should now be a lot more occupied. I also increased the number to 8, just so that they can start working on that a little bit quicker. But we did get our old gate points, so we can now unlock that. Our next goal is probably going to be the Elder Trail and then the Iron Floor. We need to upgrade 100 old ants to get optimizing life, but I now want to show you why I wanted the old gate so badly. So what I would like to do is I would like to set up an old ant refreshing factory, basically. So I think the perfect place to do this is probably going to be at the end down here somewhere. We throw that, I don't know, how far over do I want this to be? Probably about there, I think, is going to be good. And I want 3 of these. Throw that there and throw that right about there. Hopefully that doesn't get in the way. I think it'll be fine. Where do we get null? Oh, that's from unlocking plant cutting. Okay, that's fine. So what I want to happen here is I want a trail that is technically a hauling trail, but that's going to be fine. And I kind of want this to cut through the exact middle of my path and go directly into these old gates here. So we're going to go into there, into there, into there, into there, and into there. And that is going to give us a path that we can send our old ants onto. Where do we get our old ants from? Well, from our current loops. So if we have a look at the way this loop is operating, you can see they're coming around in a counterclockwise motion. They're going past this storage dispenser, and then as soon as they pass that, we want to throw down an old gate right there and send them directly into that line where they're going to go over to our machines here to be combined. And then once they're combined, they will rejoin the loop. So we go from, actually that one's different, there to there, and then straight back up into our loop, just like so. Perfect. So our small worker ants will go into these first two. So we'll make sure we set these recipes to combine into workers. This last one is going to be inventors. So we don't care who comes onto this old life gate and path. We just need them to come through here. And then in case there's no room, I am going to set up a small loop here so that they can loop around just in case they didn't find anywhere to go in the first place, right? So let's say we have all of these machines are full. We have an old worker ant come through. They can't find anywhere to go. They're just going to continue going around this loop until one of these machines is empty. At that point, if we get an inventor ant, I want them to come over here. Where do I want this to be? Probably down here, actually. I'll set up a little bit of a trail right there. Come across to, I don't know, say there. And then we'll go down from that point. So we're going to need some inventor pads. I'm going to put 3 or 4 down probably for the moment. That's not even close to where I wanted that to be. We're going to throw one right there. We'll grab some more. Make sure they're actually placed the right way this time. And we'll go 2. Oh, man. 2, and maybe we'll only fit 3 in here with those flowers in the way. Well, we could probably get another one in there. Just. If I move them over a bit, it'll be fine. Okay, I'm going to move all of these over just a scooch because I don't like where they are at the moment. So we're going to move them over to be right about there. And then our inventor ants are going to follow this trail. They're going to come all the way to there, make a turn, and go into these inventor pads. Just like so. Now, of course, we need to feed them. So we'll throw ourselves another hauling path. And I actually think I prefer doing a singular ant per pad rather than having like 4 or 6 ants doing the entire loop. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and grab myself some of our flowers, which are here. We'll go ahead and throw a dispenser down in between each of these. We place it basically as close as we can, right about there, right about there, and right about there, and last one there. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to make these just serve 2 machines each. That might be a better solution. And then we'll grab our other flower patch that we're harvesting down here, grab a dispenser for that, just to make sure that we always have stuff on hand. Place that facing the other one, so that will go, I don't know, say there and there. And then we can set up hauling paths that go from here to here to here to here. Nice small path. We can probably fit 2 ants on each path just to make this process a little bit quicker, although it's probably not entirely necessary. So wherever it connects is where we want it to be, and we'll drag that in just a little bit more. And that is our paths for feeding our inventor ants. Of course, we are going to need to put them onto gates. So we'll need 2 gates coming out of here. One will come down and go directly into this one, and the other one will go from there and directly into this one, just like so. And I'm going to leave those at 1 ant for now. I think that will probably be enough. We don't have that many old ants going in, but we now need to go ahead and set up these old gates for all of our big loops. So just keep in mind when you're placing these that they should always be right next to your stockpile, just to make sure that your ants don't have anything in their inventory. Because if they have something in their inventory, they can't drop it before they go into this system. So I'm going to need to bring this over just a little bit. Well, do I? No, they can probably just go directly into there, to be fair. They can go directly into there like so. We'll grab another old gate for our other giant flower situation down here. They are going this way, so we'll set up our old gate there. That will come out a little bit and go directly... Well, actually, this one doesn't really work out very well. So we might bring it a little bit further up. Let me just remove both of those so I can redraw it better. We'll come directly up. We'll go over. Can we cross that? No, I don't want to. Something like that. We'll go up to basically that same point there, and then hopefully we can just draw it straight into there. That works perfectly. And I like to keep nice straight lines. You absolutely don't have to. You can cross paths. It's fine. All of those things are absolutely okay. The other things we need to consider are putting them on our factories here, because these guys will also get old and die. So I'm going to bring that out directly from the middle after they've been to the stockpile. Bring that into there. This one is everlasting ant, so is that, so we don't have to worry about them just yet. This is all going to get deconstructed, so we don't have to worry about that. We could potentially do one here as well, and I don't see a reason not to, so we'll go up from there, straight into that path there. That'll be absolutely perfect. And then we'll do the same thing from the middle of this out to here. I'm going to remove that. And then if we can get this to be on the line, just like so, I believe that's on the line. We can bring that to the same point and bring that up over here. And I think that is all of the places where I have ants, apart from these, which I'm not going to do just yet because sometimes these guys are holding energy pods for a long time and they will clog up our system. But I think that is absolutely everyone who is old. So if we let the game run for a little bit, we should eventually start seeing old ants going along this. But for right now, we need to get rid of these. So I'm going to delete that. Delete that. We do get our resources back, so that is absolutely good to know. Delete that, and remove all of this. That'll be fine. You're an inventor ant that I actually want to use on one of our pads, so I'm just going to manually route you through this little jungle here. If I can get you to go in there, please. To there, and you should go onto an inventor pad. And then we have a couple of ants on here that can just rejoin the main loop. We can also clean up this loop a little bit, get rid of any extra nodes that we don't need, and that should be good. At this point, we can also remove this one and throw you back onto the loop and remove that. And that should be everything nicely cleaned up. All of our ant recycling is now going to happen over here. This path is temporary. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. So I will let this run for a little bit. See, oh, we've already got some ants coming in. See, we've got old ants wandering over to these paths to refresh their life. So I'm going to let that run for a little bit until we start getting some inventor ants out and about, and we'll go from there. You can see already the slew of old ants that are, well, that one just died. We were a little bit too late on that one. But you can see the slew of old ants that are coming down this path and joining the rest of their brethren to be repurposed into a better breed of ant. But I actually did forget one place, and that is this main loop itself. I also want to be taking old ants off of this loop, just in case they are just wandering around forever. We don't want that. So with that in mind, I'll probably do that down here somewhere. We'll just grab ourselves the old gate and we'll throw it from there right onto that path, and that is going to be absolutely fine. If an ant crosses this path and they're old, they will be diverted down and into these factories. Looks like we have some knowledge there. So I'm going to let this run for a little bit as our ants get repurposed. One final thing that I would actually like to do with this setup is optimize the way this works. So if we have 5 inventor ants come onto this line, each of these will fill up and the last one will wait until this is free. That's not what I want necessarily. I want them to line up evenly behind these things. And in order to do that, there are a couple of options. We can either use the divider, which will send them off evenly, which is probably a decent way to go. or we could use the counter gate and have a 1 on each of these. So for right now, I'm going to remove these lines here, bring this back just a little bit, and I think I will use the divider for now. Well, will I? No. I'm going to use the counter gate. I think I like it better. I think it's a little bit more of an elegant solution. So I'm going to do a counter gate from this point to all of these points, just like so. They're only going to allow 1 ant onto each line at a time. Any others will back up here and they'll wait their turn until they can get onto one of these machines. And I think that's going to work out a little bit better. So I'm going to save myself up another 50 inventor points just to unlock the Elder Trail, so everything is a little bit clearer and easier to see, and then we will go from there. Alright, so like I said before, this is the exact reason why I didn't set up old gates on these dispensers here. If we sent this small worker ant into our old loop, it would take the orb with it and not enter that loop. We can do it manually if we just tell it to drop something and then manually send it onto that loop. I'm going to do that with both of them. That will speed up the process. We will still get a replacement ant, and if you want to pick up this energy orb, just click it. It will automatically go into the dispenser, and we don't have to worry about that. I'm going to save up one more inventor ant's worth of inventor points, and we'll be back at that point. And with 50 inventor points in our pocket, I am going to go ahead and unlock the Elder Trail. Now, I'm going to pause the game real quick as we do this, but the Elder Trail basically is a special trail designed to guide ants to their last destination. Old ants will gain a speed boost, while younger ants will be slowed down. The trail also makes ants last a little longer before dying. So basically, I want to replace all my paths for my old ants with basically Elder Trails to make sure that they get to their destinations safely and a little bit quicker. So we are going to go from all of these points where we have these old gates set up and convert them into Elder Trails. That is also going to give us the benefit of basically being able to see where our Elder Trails are and distinguish them from everywhere else. So that is going to be fantastic. And yeah, that's basically the main point of me wanting to do this, is so that I can see where things are happening just a little bit quicker and keep everything a little bit more organized. I like to do this early on so that I don't have, a ton of different trails to upgrade and change. I believe that's all of them. Oh, I missed one here. I believe that's all of them. If I missed one, please do let me know in the comments. But I think that is all of them. And now our Elder Ants, you can see, are moving a little bit quicker, especially compared to our normal worker ants also following that trail. That'll just speed this process up just that little bit more. Looks like everything here is currently working pretty well. You can see a little overview of our colony if we zoom out. And this has been Microtopia. And I love it. I'm really enjoying this game. If you guys want to see more of this, please do make sure to let me know in the comments down below. If you're not super interested, also let me know down in the comments. But yeah, if you're here, make sure to leave a like and a comment for the sake of engagement. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Consider becoming a member. I am sorry that we can't rename our ants to our Golden Panda members, but that sort of just is what it is. The other thing I was going to say is that 2 Point Museum is not going anywhere. I'm just going to alternate between these two if you guys want to see more of this. But until next time, happy building, happy colonizing, I suppose. Bye, guys.